Welcome to the Great Reboot. I'm Tori Ryden. Well, 3 months after folks were told to stay at home and do a lot of telecommuting, working from home, here we are. We thought we'd all be back inside our offices, but we're still very much working from home, trying to make it work. Many people, too many, have been laid off and are now trying to kind of figure out what they're going to do next, if they're going to be able to reapply to their previous jobs or if they're going to be kind of facing a whole new horizon. And our guest has been seeing a lot of that, and she's been working with companies and helping them kind of figure out their next shift during all of this COVID. Tara Jenkins is the CEO of Capitalism Revolution. And Tara, thank you so much for being with us. It's great to have you here. I know you have been in the thick of it during COVID. Has your work really kind of ramped up since COVID hit?
Yeah, I think now, I think we're starting to see people being able to focus a little bit more on the future, whereas at the early stages of COVID, it was more about survival. And my work is very much how to build the company that you want to build for today and the future. And so I certainly understood that people were in survival mode for a period of time, but now many clients are thinking about, okay, what's next and how are we going to reboot ourselves? And in the beginning stages of COVID, it was more like, if I have to do a layoff, how should I consider doing it? What will be the impact on my employees? So some more tactical types of things, which I'm happy to say, I think we're past as a society.
Fingers crossed, right? Yeah, fingers are crossed. So just to give people more of a background on who you are, and then we'll really kind of talk more about what your company is and all of that. And I know that you're still developing too, because you're trying to figure out the needs of so many people. But your background, you worked at IDEX for a number of years. And IDEX, for people who don't know, why don't you give the explanation of what IDEX is? And you were the head of HR there.
Well, I was a VP of HR there and reported into the Chief Human Resources Officer. IDEX, for people who don't know, is a veterinary diagnostic company with a global footprint, about 10,000 employees, at least pre-COVID. And I have about 25 years of experience in human resources, working in all sorts of environments, last one being IDEX in a corporate context. In professional services, I was the head of HR at Pierce Atwood, another local institution, so to speak. So I have lots of experience running human resources in organizations, but also developing organizations, which I really translated that experience of thinking about leadership and culture and the focus of what an organization is there to do. I carried that forward into my business that I have now, as you said, it's called Capitalism Revolution, which is a consulting practice that works with CEOs and founders to build conscious businesses. Build businesses in an alternative way than just focused on profit or making continual money, but really focusing on solving a worthy problem in the world and creating a business around solving that problem and working with your stakeholders to add value to the stakeholders and to the world.
How similar is that to, I know several people who have worked in helping companies to invest in, nonprofits or invest in companies that are sustainable. Because so many people have that on their minds that they don't want to work for a company unless they have that conscience.
That's a great way to frame it. What I'd say first is for clients that I have that are nonprofit, what they are typically starting off with is a real sense of their purpose or their mission or the reason why they're in existence, and what they need help with is business strategy more often than not. And then on the for-profit side, hopefully they're starting off, the clients that would be attracted to working with me would be starting off with the idea that they know that they want to do more in the world than just make money. And I think in large part that resonates with most people. They've started or have joined an organization because they want it to align with their passions and what they think is important in the world, because we're all spending a ton of time doing our work. And we want it to be meaningful. And that's more and more the case in every generation to come, is that they want their work to be meaningful. And that's a key criteria for whether they will work in an organization, to your point. So in those organizations that are starting with a for-profit focus, what I focus on with them is, okay, but you're going to make money, and you're actually going to make more money, by the way, if you lead your business consciously, for sure. All the research shows that. But we have some steps to take in order to make that happen. And one would be certainly making sure that you have articulated what your higher purpose is. Why are you here? in the world, and what do you set out to do? And that ends up attracting the right, not only employees, but the right investors as well. And so the investors that you want aligned with you are ones that feel equally passionate about your purpose and have the same expectations around you as a shareholder around what it will take to make money in this organization. And if they have that long-term orientation and they look at the research, they'll know that if I'm in this for the long term, I am going to make more money if the company is led consciously. And I want to support that with all of the leadership team, including the CEO, as a member of the board or as an investor.
It's really, kind of tantamount to everybody having buy-in. And so if everybody's on board, then it seems like then everything would go really well. I think right now, why don't you give your contact information, how people can reach out to you, because they might want to look at your website. You've got such cool services that you're offering companies. Let's get that out of the way and then get to more questions.
Great. Okay. So you can reach me at www.consciousrevolution.biz. That's the website. And on there, as you said, is all of the different services and helping maybe potential clients see what might resonate most with them, or something about where they might start in their conscious journey. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn under Tara Jenkins. And you can also email me at tara@consciousrevolution.biz. So lots of different options there.
So Tara, a lot of people, here we are, we're talking via Zoom. There are so many different platforms we could be using, so I don't want to just shill out to Zoom. I have no stock in that company. But anyway, we're all working so differently, and I'm wondering, what do you see as, we've all shifted, right? This is our, and I don't like the phrase new normal, because I think that it's changing every day. But I'm wondering, what is your vision now, and what are some of the ideas you might want to share with people to persevere in this different kind of setting? How can people be really successful in having a different style of work? At least where they're working from.
Yeah, I think what COVID has shown us is that where we thought the box was of how to operate, either as individuals or as a business, the box is far larger and more flexible than we might have imagined. And so we've proven out that, while there's been enormous challenges for many people working from home, particularly if you're caring for kids at the same time that we're doing online schooling, which was certainly the case for me, that there's much more flexibility in how work can get done. And over time, in my course of working in human resources, there's been tons of studies that we used to show in organizations to leaders saying people are more productive when they work from home. But often leaders didn't necessarily believe that, or there is this old-fashioned sort of mentality of like butts in seats, FaceTime thing that was pervasive in many company cultures. Even in this day and age, pre-COVID. And I think what COVID has challenged us all to think about is, how do we advance technology and use the tools that were already there to actually enhance the work experience? And so the productivity gains come from being sensitive to people always having a lot of things to juggle in their whole life, and work is a piece of that whole life. And so what this allows flexibility, and I think tests maybe the models of organizations and the mindsets of organizations that were saying people have to be here and they have to be interacting with each other, and we have to invest a huge amount in spaces for people to collect and collaborate. Is there's lots of great online tools that allow people to do that. And while we do all want, in some ways, I'm sure, to get back together in person, it doesn't necessarily mean to be at the cadence that we always felt we had to do it previously. And that lots of employees, I think, will change their expectations of their employer about how often they need to make the commute into work, which is usually time wasted, and try to balance all the things in their life when they were successfully able to do it under the COVID time. So I think our expectations have changed, and employees will demand something different going forward.
I used to say I could never work from home. I did. I would say I could never do that, because I would be squirrel, and I'd be like in the middle of something. Ooh, I got to go do the laundry. Oh, I should just go empty the dishwasher right now. There are always things kind of pulling at me that way. But now, when there is not a choice, and this is a situation, that we're doing right now, I guess I'm wondering, do you have any strategies that you could share with people to, again, be successful with this? Are you sharing that with people? Yeah, you're nodding your head.
Yeah. Um, and I have, had a lot of people ask me for that type of advice. So I'm reflecting on, it's a very individualized approach, I think, but there's some general parameters around it. For me, I've always been in the work setting when I go into work. And maybe this is the way that you are too, Tori, very good at compartmentalizing. So like, okay, I'm at work now. I'm doing the work stuff, and I'm at home and I'm doing home stuff, and often the work bled into the home, but rarely did the home bleed into the work in reverse for me. And since I left the corporate environment and started my own business, I've been working from home the whole time. So it's a significant adjustment for me. The only adjustment in COVID for me was my kids were here at the same time for the whole time. And that was a big adjustment. But I think for some people, continuing that compartmentalization is really important. That helps them stay focused. And that is the case for me. If I'm doing something where I need to focus for most of the day, I'm fortunate enough to have a space in my home where I can actually kind of carve myself out and block myself off. And I recognize that that's certainly not the case for everybody, but I think if you can do that, that's an important thing to do. And I have to have notes on my door to tell my kids, like, do not knock, do not open, so that they know not to do that. So we come up with different strategies that way. And I'd say for some other people, there's enormous freedom in what you were just describing of, oh, I can get up right now and put some laundry in. Like, it's not all piling up. I can integrate. And that's a muscle that we often don't have, and a muscle I'm working on too, because my compartmentalization muscle is really strong, but my integration muscle, not so much. And so how much more freedom can I have to really think about my free time when I'm not working, if I have taken 5 to 10 minute breaks in between to clean up the kitchen and put the laundry in and keep things moving from a household perspective, rather than letting it all pile up. And so that's something I think is very individualistic about what works best for you, but would be something to consider. Is there is a way to take healthy breaks and take care of yourself, incorporate walks, think about your life much more holistically than you might have before, because you have an opportunity to do that and incorporate things differently in the way you spend your time.
It's almost a more European way, I think. I mean, they all take naps. They shut down their business for as long as they want, and then, it's just a different. They don't live to work. They work to live.
It's so
right?
true.
So
I
it's a
examined
different.
that firsthand a lot when I lived in Amsterdam, because I was on an assignment in Amsterdam for 3 years. And what's amazing about the Netherlands in particular, but this definitely is European as well, is the little amount of time they spend at work while being highly productive and really enjoying their life. And as a US person coming into that type of culture, I think my toxic productivity was really apparent. Like, we have this outcomes oriented, like constantly on, constantly needing to be productive mentality, but that actually as a strength becomes a fault when it's overused. And so what I saw is in Europe and in the Netherlands in particular, like, people really enjoying their lives. They have the least amount of work per, lowest amount of work per week spent of most countries. You'd see people enjoying themselves at restaurants at 3 p.m. And I would go by and think, well, what is going on here? Where they have enormous wealth and they have really a wonderful society, and they built up things in such a way that you'd say could surpass most of the great cities in the United States, yet they enjoy their lives. And I think we should take a lot of lessons from that, but also apply that to our COVID situation and what we want as the big reboot of, how am I going to really build a life that I really want and that I really enjoy? And when I'm talking with clients and CEOs, I'm talking to them about building a company that they really are proud of, that they can look in the mirror and be proud of. And a piece of that is, how do you help your employees live their best lives holistically? And how do you support that in the best way, rather than thinking of them as someone that is there to do a specific thing for you or for your company? These are multidimensional people that have lots of skills and talents and potential to give. And we usually are looking at them so narrowly that it limits the potential of the company overall.
Do you think that we're done with that cog mentality that you were just describing, that we're all just a bunch of cogs in the whole wheel? Is that going to go away? We still have factories, we still have manufacturing, but will there be a wholesale change? And can there be?
I wish I could say I think it would be wholesale. I don't think so. I think it's part of an evolution that I think that was accelerated a lot in COVID, and remains to be seen how much that will sustain after COVID, or whether we're going to make another sort of dip in that everyone's searching for a job, and so they'll take whatever they can get because of the financial stability concern. So I think we've learned a lot, and our expectations have changed. And there are many companies that, as they're thinking about that stakeholder mentality of even thinking about their suppliers as a stakeholder, that they want to treat not as a supplier in that, the more that the less that the supplier charges me, the more money I make because I can, pass that on to the customer. That mentality of not thinking about it holistically and thinking about everyone needs to gain is much more prevalent. When you go back to last year, the Business Roundtable in August of last year, you might remember, would have seen, the Business Roundtable is the largest lobbying organization. It's made up of 180 plus of the biggest CEOs of the biggest businesses in the United States. And for the first time ever, they came out with a different purpose of a company, where they said, the purpose of a company is no longer just to make money. It's no longer just to make the shareholders happy by making as much money as possible. They said the purpose of a company is to add value to all of your stakeholders. That's revolutionary for them to say that. Whether they actually practice that in their businesses is another question. That's kind of the next stage of the evolution. But it has to be said first in order for us to all re-engineer and adjust our thinking about what does that actually mean, and what does that mean in application in a business. And so I see that happening all over the place, that the expectations and what people are saying is different. Then the next phase is behaviors are going to be different. And that's what we need to demand. I think as employees, when we're signing up to work at an organization, we need to demand that we're treated in a specific way that honors us and thinks and respects us and thinks about us as part of humanity in general. But really even more powerful maybe is as consumers, as people who buy products from companies and make those decisions every single day, have a different expectation about the companies that you're buying from, and look into what have they done during COVID? What did they do with their employees? How were their employees treated? And then also, when you think about their environmental record, or what you know about what they're doing in their communities, how much does that matter to the dollars that you spend? And recognizing that the companies that are doing that all really well and balancing the needs of stakeholders may have higher product prices than the other companies that are doing it on the cheap, or with a much more focused approach to providing the cheapest product at the fastest pace. And so if you are really going to buy according to your values and use your purchasing power in the way that creates a better world, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is and pay more for a company that's really holistically thinking through these issues? What the research shows is that most consumers will say, I am willing to pay more for a company that thinks about the greater good and has more social consciousness and is building a conscious business in the way we've been talking about. But their behavior is still lagging. Like, they say they want to do that, but then when it comes down to, do I buy on Amazon because I can get it in 2 days and it's this price, or do I go to my local supplier and think about paying a little bit more, or sometimes a lot more, but know that it's the right company and the right process? We're still all too much going to Amazon. So we have some work to do.
Okay, so I've got a couple questions regarding that. First of all, when somebody is kind of looking into a company, is it easy to find that information? That's the first part of the question. The second is quasi-related. It is when somebody, and a lot of people might be watching this, and they were laid off. They are part of the unemployed mass. So I guess I'm wondering if you could kind of answer the first and the second, which is, what do you suggest for these people to be doing? I mean, what should they be doing today to help them really prepare for and find a job? Because they're going to have to. The gravy train is running out, has run out.
Yeah, no, great point. I have gotten this question asked. I did post on LinkedIn a few months ago, or a couple months ago, that I would offer to help any individuals that were in a layoff situation with figuring out what their next steps were. And so I had a bunch of, at that point, strangers take me up on that offer, which was the intent. And so I got the question very often of like, what do I do next? And how do I align myself with the right company? So even people that are in, a financially scary situation, being laid off and sometimes entertaining a severance package, not always, I think are really being much more deliberate in my experience, in my discussions with them. What kind of company do I want to sign up for next? And asking the very question you're asking, like, how do I know? How do I know that I'm not going to get into this situation again, particularly if their layoff was really what I'd say inhumane? Like, I didn't think that this is the way this would go, and I don't ever want to experience this again. How do I make sure that's the case? And so I think from a consumer perspective, we buy things, and from an employee perspective, where do we put our precious life's time and devotion towards in terms of a company? The good news is there's so much more information than there ever has been about companies. And social media helps a tremendous amount with that. So what I tell people to really think about it from a consumer perspective is there is lots of press about what companies have done in COVID times, whether it be good or bad. And so you only have to actually like type in Amazon in the Google search and you'll find what Amazon has done that has not been something they should be proud of during COVID times. And to make that decision, does what they're doing reconcile with my own values about where I want to spend my money, as an example? There's an organization called Just Capital, Just Capital, that has been tracking all of the big companies, Fortune 500 companies, maybe even Fortune 100, if I'm remembering correctly, about what they have done, the actions they have taken during COVID to hold them to account for the decisions that they've made, and then see how long-term viable those decisions are in terms of our big reboot type of model. So that would be a great website to go to really look at what are some of the companies that are brand name recognized in every household, what decisions are they making, and how are they comparing against each other in terms of being really conscious. And their model is about asking the public what is conscious. So it's an interesting way to look at the data. And then I'd say on the company side, in thinking about what company to work for, there is experiencing the company website, which again, keeping in mind and underscoring, is a marketing tool. But you can learn a lot about what the company has decided to market on the website. And then in going through the interview process, let's say you do an interview, you're fortunate and you're going through the interview process, asking to, remembering that that's a two-way street, and that, even though you want a job that's going to fulfill you and be meaningful. And so you have the right and the opportunity to ask deep questions and ask to meet with people that you may not otherwise think of. So I'll often tell people, like, well, ask to meet with some of the employees as part of your interview process. Like, you can control and architect some of the interview process as well, if you feel comfortable doing that. And then online, there's reviews of employers all over the place. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Indeed, all have places where current and former employees go and give reviews on the CEO or the company experience. And you can use that to fuel your questions during the interview process to really get a deeper understanding of what the company's saying. Are they doing? Are they walking their talk? Some companies are super good, and we all know them, of really having great marketing. They know the values they're supposed to put on the wall and on the website, and they know all the right things to say. They know the corporate responsibility report that needs to be required to put on the website, but there's no meaning in terms of the way that they're making decisions inside the company, and that doesn't reflect the employee experience. You can find that out if you really want to, without too much effort, I think. So those are the things that I would tell people to do.
So COVID is giving some people just a whole new opportunity to get a job that actually fits them and make sure that that company deserves them as their
That's so
employee.
true. And I think many times people don't realize those companies exist. They've had a lot of bad experiences with companies or poor leadership. I mean, the statistic is over 50% of people leave a company because of their leader, their direct manager. And so that has lots of scarring associated with it, to kind of think of the employment experience as largely something you have to put up with, that it, work is work, and life is life, and work is a part of my life, but it's not fulfilling and rewarding, and it should not be that way and does not have to be that way. And there are companies out there that want to provide a different experience, and you do have to work a little bit to find them. I mean, my goal is that at some point the conscious business term won't exist, because the only way to do business will be consciously. And that's the whole movement, the conscious business movement. That's what we're trying to do, is elevate humanity through business. We are doing that, and it's happening, and I'm seeing it all over the place. And so what I tell people is, like, the companies are out there. You have to figure out what your values are and what kind of company you want to work for, and make sure that alignment is there when you're seeking out your employment. And even if, you have financial hardship, which many people do, and you have to find something in the interim, that's okay. But have a plan for yourself, have a strategy for yourself of the type of company that is worthy, as you said, of your time and effort, and be working towards that always. Because more and more, there will be more companies for you to choose from as an employee and as a consumer, if we all start practicing this and change our expectations.
Tara Jenkins, CEO of Conscious Revolution, giving us hope that companies are going to do better, and that we all can do better and find better. I love your words of wisdom, and I wish we could multiply you so that you could be available to every job seeker who is going to be needing some work. So prepare, you're going to have a lot of requests. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us here on The Great Reboot.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.